But when the overseas factories making those chips shut down, the production stopped, and the cost of new cars soared. You know, it didn't have to be that way. And I was determined to change that. I remember looking at my staff and saying, I'm going to South Korea. And they said, you're what? Oh, you think I'm kidding? See, the guy next to you is a brilliant economist. He didn't think I was so brilliant going overseas. But all kidding aside, I came to office with a different vision for America. That's been consistent with my record, good, bad, or indifferent, since I've been a senator. Grow the economy from the middle out and the bottom up. Invest in America and American products. And when that happens, everybody is. The wealthy still do very well. And all of America, no matter where they lived, whether they went to college or not, I was determined to restore U.S. leadership in industries of the future. You know, 4 years later, we have proof that the playbook is at least now working. You know, within the first 2 months of office, I signed the American Rescue Plan, the most significant economic recovery package in our history. And I also learned something from Donald Trump. He signed checks for people for $7,400 because we passed the plan. And I didn't, stupid. Anyway. But all kidding aside, I realize we're talking about the impact of politics, but the economic basic principles are what we're after. You know, we helped pass that act, we helped vaccinate the nation. And as we return to full employment, this was just the beginning. We understood we needed long-term investments for the future. Investing in America agenda, which includes my bipartisan infrastructure law, Chips and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. Together, they mark the most significant investment in America since the New Deal. And that's a fact. I mean, whether it's good or bad, that's a fact. The Inflation Reduction Act alone is the most significant investment in climate and energy ever anywhere in the entire world. We were told we couldn't get it done. We got $368 billion. We make these investments. When we make them, we buy America. Buy American has been the law of the land since the 30s. I won't go back, it takes too much time. But you go back to the laws Lincoln, my lord. You go back to the laws that Roosevelt passed about allowing unions to resist being stepped on and organized. Well, there's a provision, a Buy America provision. I was a senator a long time. I thought I was pretty informed. I didn't know it existed. And by the way, former presidents didn't know. If they knew, they didn't say anything about it. It says the money that the president authorizes the Congress to spend should be used by the president to hire American workers and buy American products. There's an exemption. You couldn't find the American product, American worker, you could go overseas. But you had to show it. Well, guess what? Past administration, including my president, failed to buy America. But not on my watch. We're modernizing our roads, our bridges, our ports, our airports, our clean water system, affordable high-speed internet systems, and so much more. And by the way, if you think about the high-speed internet systems, they're as consequential to farmers as electricity was during the administration of Roosevelt. I'm serious. You can't function without it. And we've incentivized building all these large federal projects with American products and American union, mostly union labor. New pathways into these jobs, including a record number of registered apprenticeships that we've made sure occurred. As I noted earlier, when I came to office, semiconductor manufacturing had moved overseas. I was determined to bring it back, so it wouldn't be at the end of the supply chain, but at the beginning of the supply chain. And that's what we've done with my Chips and Science Act, which has attracted $350 billion in private sector investment in America, including from Korea and from Taiwan. I remember when we went to digress, I shouldn't because of the long speech, but to digress just a moment, went to South Korea. And I met with Yoon and I met with Samsung. I said, why are you making this billions-dollar investments in what we call the Field of Dreams outside of Columbus, Ohio? He said, because you have the most capable workers in the world, and it's the safest place in the world for me to make my investment. These investors are building what they call new fab. You all know this, but a fab is new factories, but they're these giant things, big as football fields. And guess what? When they're built, they employ thousands of people. And guess what? The average salary, $102,000. And you don't need a college degree to do the job. These investments, massive chips factories, these fabs, these size of several football fields. As I said, and the field is ranged from all across America, from New York to Ohio to Arizona. I mean, you know, and when I ask these companies why they're investing, again, not a joke. I give my word, and you all know that. You're businesswomen, man. You all know it. They say we have the most qualified workers in the world. Everybody thinks that, you know, I have trouble with my union friends. They're not very good salesmen for themselves. Everybody thinks, the average person out there thinks, to say, I want to be an electrician. 5 years later, as an apprentice, you can become an electrician. Look, the CHIPS investments are creating over 125,000 jobs so far. Many of those jobs are paying over 100 grand a year, and we don't need a college degree, as I said. And it's not just fabs. These investments are creating opportunities for entire communities. Small businesses creating even more jobs when they move. When you build, for example, you build one of these fabs, whether it's in Syracuse or wherever, they're all over the place. Guess what? You know what happens? They end up building drugstores, coffee shops, automobile dealerships. They build entire communities because thousands of people move in who can afford to live a decent life. In fact, and we knew in the beginning, this wasn't going to come to fruition in my campaign, my administration. It takes time to get this done. But watch 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years from now. We'll soon be the only economy in the world to have all 5 of the major chip companies operating in the United States of America. It's not only creating thousands, it will create thousands of jobs and good paying jobs, building chips factories. We're always creating those jobs for workers installing more solar panels, batteries, selling more electric vehicles than ever before. You know, that's a construction boom and manufacturing boom all across America. It's just going to continue to pick up with the billions of dollars being invested. When faced with unfair practices from abroad, we've taken a tough but targeted action on behalf of the American worker, American businesses, and factory towns. You know, we know the pandemic and Russian war in Ukraine and inflation created enormous pain and hardship all across America. It's true for every major economy in the world. But we took aggressive action that brought prices down. For example, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, causing gas prices to spike globally, I ordered the biggest release of ever in our strategic petroleum reserve. That's all that you all know. Most people listening wouldn't, but that's all that oil we've saved up. And we challenged the oil and gas companies to take their record profits and invest more in production. Invest more in production. Today, American energy production is at record levels, including in oil and gas production. Gas prices are down to $3. $3, below the price before Russia's invasion. In addition, we've successfully pushed back all the oil released at a much lower price, and we've refilled the facilities, making the taxpayers in the process $3.5 billion. Brought it out, got it back, a hell lot cheaper to fill it back up. Now inflation is coming down faster than almost anywhere in the world in advanced economies. As inflation eased and the strong labor market persisted, inflation-adjusted wages and incomes began to rise. Average after-tax income is up almost $4,000 than prices on average for average Americans. 80% of working-age Americans have jobs, near a multi-decade high. We're creating a record jobs. 60% of all Americans who chose to pursue a 4-year degree, who chose not to pursue a 4-year degree. With our historic backing of union, public support for unions is the highest it's been in more than half a century. And the labor movement is expanding and changing, and new companies are in industries. Here's why it's important for all workers. I asked the Treasury Department when I was pushing for union expansion to do a study. They found that when union wages go up, everybody's wages go up across the board. It matters. The middle out, bottom up playbook is also asking that the very wealthy the most profitable corporations, begin to pay their fair share. I won't use the usual site that's used. We got 1,000 billionaires in America. Their average federal tax is 8.2%. Anybody want to trade with them? Well, look, my predecessor's $2 trillion tax cut overwhelmingly benefited the very wealthy and the biggest corporations, delivering tax cuts to the top 1% worth more than 50 times the tax cuts that went to middle class families, you see. My approach is leading to better results for everyone. I kept my commitment that no one, and it didn't make me very popular with Democrats, no one earning less than $4,000 a year would see $400,000 a year would pay an additional single penny in additional taxes. No one. Not only I fought hard to expand the child tax credit for working families, but cut child poverty nearly in half. And by the way, it increases economic growth. More women can go back to work. More women can grow the economy. Expanded tax credits to make health insurance more affordable for millions of Americans enrolled in the Affordable Care Act. By the way, the other team tried to get rid of it, 51 votes, okay? After a decade of severe underfunding, I fought hard to make the IRS have a budget with enough personnel and technology. And it's awful hard. It's easy to go after my taxes, not a problem. You know, and I make a good living. You pay me a lot of money as a president. But for the very wealthy, it's awful hard. You need more personnel. And guess what? We finally, after the fight, got more personnel. Never did I think I'd be fighting to get more tax collectors. We got more folks in the department. The result, the IRS has already collected over $1 billion in unpaid taxes from the super wealthy that had not been paid in the past. Look, folks, our economic playbook also includes increasing fair competition. I'm a capitalist. But capitalism without competition is not capitalism, it's exploitation. But not on my watch. My Inflation Reduction Act took on Big Pharma, reduced the price of insulin for seniors with diabetes to pay only $35 a month until close to the average of $400 a month. You know, when I was trying to sell this to the American public, I'd go around the country doing town meetings and say, anybody has a prescription from a major drug company in America? Come with me, get an Air Force One. I will take you to Toronto, to Berlin, to Rome, to anywhere in the world. And I'll get you that same exact prescription from the same exact company for somewhere between 40 and 60% less. Well, the Inflation Reduction Act also finally gives Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices for seniors across the board. It's already passed. Starting next month, out-of-pocket prescription drug costs for seniors, total prescription drug costs, we capped at $2,000 a year, no matter how much they spend, no matter how expensive their drugs. And you all know it, because some of you, like me and others, have lost families to cancer and cancer treatment. Those drugs, cancer drugs, cost $10, $12, $14 thousand a year. These other reforms not only save seniors money, not only saves the patient money, but guess what? It saves every one of you taxpayers money, because the federal government is not paying out $160 billion over the next 10 years that it had to pay now. Because they're not paying that, they're paying $35, not $400 for the prescription. Exorbitant prices of pharmaceutical companies have been charging. We're also lowering costs by eliminating junk fees. Junk fees are those hidden costs that can add up to hundreds of dollars for the average American family. You know, hidden costs like excessive banking overdraft fees. So I didn't realize I had the power to do this, but we brought them down from average of $35 a month for an overdraft to $5 a month. It cost the banks a lot of money, but it was fair. $35, deal with the overdraft. And in addition to that, there's late fees for credit cards, apartment application fees. I know most of us don't even look at that, but just to apply. Hidden hotel fees or family seating arrangements on flights. A lot of you got that one down. I don't know about all of you, but maybe it's the Irish in me, but I hate being played for a sucker. No, I'm serious. People get angry when they find this out. Fair competition is especially important for small businesses that have been crushed by decades of concentrated corporate power. That's important because small businesses represent nearly 50% of the entire GDP of the American economy. Because of our policies and confidence of entrepreneurs in the economy, We've seen 20 million, since I became president, 20 million new business applications during this administration, the most of any presidential term in history, a record. Black businesses ownership is doubling. Hispanic business ownership is up by 40% since the pandemic. Share of women in business is also on the rise. It all has benefited not just those groups, but all of the economy. Every single application for a new business license is like an act of hope, a confidence. There's so much more from our playbook. Bottom line is, in 4 short years, we've come a long way. Excuse me for my cold, if I apologize. From the crisis we inherited, we not only beat the pandemic, we broke from the economic orthodoxy that has failed this nation, in my view, for a long time, a theory that led to fewer jobs, less economic growth, and bigger deficits. I had a fundamentally different theory. My theory was the strongest economy is built from the bottom up and the middle out, from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. And the best way to build in America was to invest in America, invest in American products, invest in American people, not by handing out tax breaks to those at the top. And I'm not looking, look, I won't get in, we can talk about taxes. But it was long past time for America to make a generational investment in our infrastructure, in our manufacturing base, in the technological edge in our clean energy future. I know it's been hard for many Americans to see, and I understand it. I just trying to figure out how to put 3 squares on the table. But I believe it was the right thing to do. Not only to lift America out of economic crisis caused by a pandemic, but set America on a stronger course for the future. And we did that. We don't take my word for it. Here's how Time magazine and other commentators describe the economy I'm leaving to my successor. And there's a number of these quotes. President-elect Trump is receiving the strongest economy in modern history, which is the envy of the world. I'm going to say something outrageous. I know a fair amount about foreign policy. I've known every major world leader for long, been around 500 years. I know these guys. And I don't know anybody who wouldn't change their economy with ours. Can you think of one, any major nation? That says, I want to trade. I don't want to trade. I'll keep mine. I like what I'm doing. Let me close with this. By all accounts, the incoming administration is determined to return the country to another round of trickle-down economics and another tax cut for the very wealthy that will not be paid for, or if paid for, is going to have a real cost, once again causing massive deficits or significant cuts in basic programs of healthcare, education, veterans benefits. On top of that, he seems determined to impose steep universal tariffs on all imported goods brought to this country, on the mistaken belief that foreign countries will bear the cost of those tariffs rather than the American consumer. Who do you think pays for this? I believe this approach is a major mistake. I believe we've proven that approach is a mistake over the past 4 years. But we all know in time what will happen. I've never agreed with Ronald Reagan's approach to the economy, although I got along with him very well. But I did agree with something he said. President Reagan said, and I quote, "Facts are stubborn things." Facts are stubborn things. They are. Here are the facts. A set mark of benchmarks, if you will, that we should measure the success or failure of our next 4 years. During my presidency, we created 60 million new jobs in America. Will the next president create jobs, or like Herbert Hoover, be the only president to lose jobs in his administration? During my presidency, will we see the lowest average unemployment rate than any administration in 50 years? Will the unemployment be higher or lower in the next 4 years? We have had a strong economic growth of 3% on average on a yearly basis. Will the next president have a stronger or weaker economic growth? And inflation, yes, inflation. We're battling through worldwide effects of the pandemic, Putin's war in Ukraine, and supply chain disruptions. I'm leaving the next president with an inflation rate that's near 2%. Where will inflation be at the end of the next president's term? Look, these are simple, well-established economic benchmarks used to measure the strength of any economy, the success or failure of any president's 4 years in office. They're not political or rhetorical opinions. They're just facts, simple facts, as President Reagan called them, stubborn facts. And one more fact as I prepare to leave office. You know, there is no country on earth better positioned to lead the world in the years to come than America. Think about it, what stunned me. And again, I'm going to say something outrageous. I have as much experience in foreign policy as any president in history of the United States has had. I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. Anyway, I spent a lot of time. I know all of them. Well, the decisions we make over the next 4 years have been transformative to the nation. But I tell you what stunned me, and I'm not being a hyper-American here. I can't name a single country in the world that doesn't think, put it this way, if we're not leading the world, who does? Not a joke. I'm not being wise guy. If we do not lead the world, what nation leads the world? Who pulls Europe together? Who tries to pull the Middle East together? How do we do the Indian Ocean? What do we do in Africa? We, the United States, lead the world. And you all are extremely experienced women and men. You know many of these leaders. You know many of these countries. Find me one that says we're not, or wish we weren't. Look, my hope and belief is that the decisions and investments are now so deeply rooted in the nation, that's going to be politically costly and economically unsound for the next president to disrupt, to cut. You know, some of my friends in the Republican Party, when I do States of the Union, who holler and like, you know, those things. They're against all the things we did. Keep your eye on them. Tell me what they want the programs we voted for them to cut in their states. Show me the most conservative Republicans willing to take away the factories that are going to be built in their states. Going to be interesting. Going to be interesting. Look, I pray to God, because I think everybody has an opportunity to reconsider the growth. I pray to God the President-elect throws away Project 2025. I think it would be an economic disaster for us in the region. In fact, consider one additional fact. The historic investments we made went to more red states than blue states. Not a politically smart thing to do, and I knew what I was doing. I knew people would be angry. But the reason they're red states and they need it more is because of the decisions they made. Decisions they made. And geography. Will the next president stop a new electric battery factory in Liberty, North Carolina? Will create thousands of jobs? Will he shut down a new solar factory being built in Carterville, Georgia? Are they going to do that? You know, will we deny seniors living in red states $35 a month insulin? I believe the only way for a president to lead America was to lead all of America. And I believe the economy I'm leaving at the moment, and others could do better than I did. I'm not saying it was perfect. But ends up at this moment the best economy, strongest economy in the world. And for all Americans, doing better. So we got a lot to do. And I'm leaving the presidency, but I'm not going away. Bad news for you all. Because I think we got to bring this country back together. When I announced my candidacy for president, I said I was running for 3 reasons. One was to restore the soul of America. Just decency in the way we treat one another. Politically, the way we treat one another. I know you know that when Pat was around and others, we had vicious fights. We'd go and sit down lunch together in the Senate dining room. Taking more of your time than I should, but one of the things that I realized when I was vice president, Barack wanted me because of my background in foreign policy and my ability to work in the Congress very well. And so about 6 years in, I decided to go up to the Senate dining room, I'm president of the Senate, to sit at the table where Democrats and Republicans sit together and began to listen again, just talk to people. Well, guess what? No place to go. You've been to the senator's dining room where they take you into the room where you can eat with other senators and other people. But right, the doors on the left of that elevator are private dining. It used to be a long buffet table. You walk in, a long table sitting, I guess, 16, 18 people on the right, parallel with the table, and you walk through an archway, and there's a table going the other way. One was a Democratic table, one was a Republican table. And when there weren't enough to sit at any one table, then they all sit together. It's hard to really dislike an individual that you strongly disagree with when you find out his wife is dying of breast cancer, or he just lost a child, or he's having serious physical problems himself. We knew each other. I really mean it. Barack used to drive Barack crazy when we met every morning at 9 o'clock, and with his last priest, we'll talk to one another when the day ended. And always give me, he said, I know. All politics is personal. But it is. It is. I watched Teddy Kennedy and Jim Eastland rip each other apart on the floor and then go down and have lunch together. So one is to restore the soul of the country. The second thing to do, I was trying to do when when I ran, was to begin to restore the middle class, to focus on people most in need. And thirdly, was to bring the politics together again. Again, we don't have to agree with one another, but we sure now have to stick with the system that's allowed us to strongly disagree and yet keep within the confines of the admonitions of the Constitution. I've taken much too much of your time, and I apologize, but you're among the most informed people in Washington. And I would really appreciate, down the road here a little bit, any constructive criticism you have, and I'm sure you have some. All right? Thank you so very much for having me.